We will not fund states that allow anarchy. There will also be an additional surge of federal resources to Portland immediately, including enhanced CBP and ICE resources. Law and order will prevail, and President Trump will make sure of it.
There's also the discussion in here that the Pentagon should regard U.S. cities as, quote, a big part of war.
Portland, Oregon, where it looks like a war zone. They're brave in our inner cities, which we're going to be talking about, because it's a big part of war now. It's a big part of war. The radical left Democrats, what they've done to San Francisco, Chicago, New York, Los Angeles, they're very unsafe places, and we're going to straighten them out one by one. We should use some of these dangerous cities as training grounds for our military, National Guard, but military, because we're going into Chicago very soon.
The president making a wholly unprecedented claim that the military should use cities where Americans live as, quote, training grounds.
We're getting new reports about a chilling and downright shocking escalation of ICE tactics against the residents of Chicago. Hundreds of armed federal agents and police, backed up by riot trucks, smoke grenades, and helicopters, breached fences and busted doors in an immigration raid on an entire apartment building on the city's south side. They pulled dozens of residents from their homes and zip ties, including children, some of them without any clothes. They then held some outside for hours and dragged the others into rented vans.
It was scary because I've never had a gun put in my face.
Neighbors like Ebony Watson says they ducked for cover as they heard several flashbangs go off.
They was terrified. The kids was crying. People was screaming. They looked very distraught. I was out there crying when I seen the little girl come around the corner. Because they was bringing the kids out too. Had them zip tied to each other. One of them literally laughed. He was standing right here. He said, them kids.
They zip tied the kids together. ICE put out a statement saying they were pursuing Trinidad gang members, but U.S. citizens living in the building say they were detained too. The cops told them that if they had any unrelated warrants, they wouldn't be going back home. 37 people were ultimately arrested after agents separated children from their parents on the street.
We must train and we must maintain. Any moment that we are not training on our mission or maintaining our equipment is a moment we are less prepared for preventing or winning the next war. That is why today, at my direction, we are drastically reducing the ridiculous amount of mandatory training that individuals and units must execute. We've already ended the most egregious. Now we're giving you back real time. Less PowerPoint briefings and fewer online courses, more time in the motor pool, and more time on the range. Our job is to make sure you have the money, equipment, weapons, and parts to train and maintain, and then you take it from there. You all know this because it's common sense. The tougher and the higher the standards in our units, the higher the retention rates in those units. Warriors want to be challenged. Troops want to be tested. When you don't train and you don't maintain, you demoralize. And that's when our best people decide to take their talents to the civilian world. The leaders who created the woke department have already driven out too many hard chargers. We reverse that trend right now. There is no world in which high-intensity war exists without pain, agony, and human tragedy. We are in a dangerous line of work. You are in a dangerous line of work. We may lose good people. But let no warrior cry out from the grave, if only I had been properly trained. We will not lose warfighters because we failed to train or equip them or resource them. Shame on us if we do. Train like your warriors' lives depend on it. Because they do. To that point, basic training is being restored to what it should be. Scary, tough, and disciplined. We're empowering drill sergeants to instill healthy fear in new recruits, ensuring that future warfighters are forged. Yes, they can shark attack, they can toss bunks, they can swear, and yes, they can put their hands on recruits. This does not mean they can be reckless or violate the law, but they can use tried and true methods to motivate new recruits make them the warriors they need to be.
All praise to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai. Double honor to the apostles and elders of GMS. Shalom to the hopefully elect. This video will be entitled Maga Pastor Calls for Executing Rebellious Black Men. All right. And it's going to come from an article from this website called Raw Story. And I will try to remember to put the link to the article in the description as well as on the comment board of the video. Now, first I put in a clip, right, which was from another brother's channel. You know, what's going on with Trump, you know, addressing the enemy from within, and you know, all the stuff that's going on with Chicago. And there's also talk of sending troops to more places, like, you know, Portland, Oregon for one. All right, there's gonna be several cities, but overall, eventually it's gonna break into the whole United States. All right, we've been prophesying about that for a long time, about Jacob's trouble. All right, and we right here at the time now. Anyway, in the midst of all of that, you now have a pastor, right? And let's go to the headline. Let's just go right to it. This is it right here. Maga pastor calls for executing rebellious black men, citing Old Testament. So this dude is talking about the scripture in Deuteronomy. Okay, now we're gonna read into this article, and the interesting thing here is, you know, what's already going on in the media and what's going on in the United States. Now you see Esau popping up and trying to use the Old Testament. Now, if you know anything about Christians, they say the law was done away with and they don't like to really deal with the Old Testament a whole lot. But now he wants to pull up the old, you know, bring the Old Testament up and talk about executing rebellious black men. Okay, so you see how shit is going. And that's brother's been prophesying for a long time. We told you these people were devils. Now let's just go right into it. So it says, Maga pastor Brian Suave called for rebellious black men to be executed according to biblical standards during a recent podcast interview, according to a new report. Right Wing Watch reported Monday that Suave suggested state authorities should kill black men according to the law prescribed in Deuteronomy 21 of the Christian Bible. The passage says parents should take a rebellious child to the center of town and have the community elders stone him to death for being a glutton and a drunkard. Suave made the comments on a recent episode of the King's Hall podcast, which he co-hosts with Christian nationalist preacher Eric Kahn. Suave and Kahn both preach at Refuge Church in Utah, according to the report. And do you think how possible do you think it is that he doesn't know that we're the Israelites? Going on, it says, quote, when we make this generalization, one of the purposes for it is for policymakers to make the kind of political movements in terms of law and order that would usher in the change over time of that culture, end quote, Suave said during the podcast episode. Now, I gotta say, this is something that we talked about in the past too. We've said, you know, that if the law of the Bible is enacted, that will curb a lot of the crime. But it should be among all, you know, so-called black as well as white, you know, just in general. The world should be governed that way. But for this devil to say it, it's quite odd, you know. I mean, it's eye-opening for him to say that. You see, for many reasons, the ones I already stated as well as others. I mean, Esau always talk about, you know, Christians always claim that they don't subscribe to the Old Testament and the law. They worry more about faith. So why is he saying that? It's an excuse. It's an excuse because Esau want Jacob. They want to shed blood, man. Let's just be real. They want to shed blood. Now it goes on, quote, one of them would be something like the law of Moses in Deuteronomy 21 concerning a rebellious child, end quote. Quote, if you take that and then you took a law like Deuteronomy 21, which is a just law that got enacted through Moses, the law was that if you had a rebellious son, you have a child who's coming up into their manhood and they're rebellious, they don't listen. He lists some characteristics, and even though they're disciplined, they will not turn. He says the father is to bring them out into the town square. This is a rebellious son, and then they stone him to death, end quote. He continued, they kill him, quote, they kill him, end quote. So this devil, you see it, he says, Khan said that an armed robber would seemingly fall into that category. Armed robber, all the ghetto culture, basically take ghetto culture. It would describe this to a T, Suave said. If you did that over 3 generations, how much violent crime would you have in the 3rd and 4th generation? Much, much less. And this is the thing. These devils are talking about that, but they created these YNs, these niggas. Their system created these demons. Because what did you do? You spawn hip hop and you only sign certain kinds of rappers, right? You uplift that in society. Even now, they bigging up Cardi B. Here she is. This bitch is still married, okay, to Offset. She's already pregnant by another dude because why? Legally, under the terms of your own government, you have said a woman could still be married and be legally separated from her husband and can proceed being with other men. And you don't punish for adultery. You don't punish for homosexuality. That's in the scripture. That's in the Old Testament. Why the fuck he ain't talking about that? Why the fuck he ain't talking about eliminating, the alphabet community from the world's population then? Since you want to go into the Old Testament, because you a goddamn hypocrite. You Edomites are hypocrites. And that shows you the main thing he's worried about is getting rid of Jacob. Here from another article, it says, this is from Right Wing Watch. Brian Suave calls for rebellious young black men to be killed by the state. You see that? And we may have to go into this later on, but it's here. Let's look in here real quick. It says, he says here in the article, well, you know what? Let's go up here. During the program, Suave and Khan, who are both aligned. Oh, no, wait. We got to go up here. Brian Suave and Eric Khan, 2 far-right Christian nationalist pastors at Refuge Church in Utah, dedicated a recent episode of their King's Hall podcast to discussing the murder of Irina Zarutska, a Ukrainian refugee who was brutally killed by a mentally ill black man while riding a metro train in Charlotte, North Carolina earlier this year. Now, if you watch the videos we did on that, we went into that whole thing, and come on, man. You seen the video. You saw the video we played and showed you the whole incident. You know that thing has got as much credibility as a tooth fairy in terms of the actual supposed murder happening. During the program, Suave and Khan, who are both aligned with racist Christian nationalist pastor Joel Webon, having made multiple appearances at his conferences and on his podcast, blamed the murder on black culture and called for rebellious young black men to be executed by the state in accordance with the Bible. Let's say that somebody was coming into our church and they're black, end quote, Suave said. Quote, would they be eligible for membership in our church? Yes, of course they would. They'd be eligible for membership in our church, but would they be permitted to participate in, embody, and practice what I call black culture generally in our church? The answer is absolutely not. Why? Because the characteristics that mark black culture are, as a generalization in the same way. Continuing on, it says, because the characteristics that mark black culture are as a generalization in the same way Paul's talking about Cretans on Crete. They are evil, murderous, violent, bestial people. They steal, they kill, they destroy, they look like Satan in how they act. They are sinful to the core. They have besetting sins that are like fatherlessness, sexual immorality. They molest children at a high rate. Any criminal statistic that you could look at, almost pretty much without exception, they excel at them. Black culture. Woo-hoo-hoo-hoo. When we make this generalization, one of the purposes of it, Suave added, is for policymakers to make the kind of political movements in terms of law and order that will usher in the change over time of that culture. One of them will be something like the law of Moses in Deuteronomy 21 concerning a rebellious child. Ooh. And I'll make sure to put this in the link as well. Both of these articles, you got to be able to read these. That's great. That's actually great stuff. Let's read that actual law. This is Deuteronomy 21. In verse 18, it says, if a man have a stubborn and rebellious son, which really, at the end of the day, these damn Edomites, they watch us, man, okay? especially them Christians, they watch us and they've heard us bring that law out before. You ain't hardly never heard a Christian bring that up. Now, would they have that same energy? Because look, you can't just put it on our people. You would also have to put it towards whites. Them kids that do them fucking school shootings and that have them, if a woman have abortions, them young, because everybody know when you was in high school growing up, white girls would get pregnant, right? What would happen? Their parents would make them get abortions. They would make them. Them damn white girls would get pregnant early in school, early years. So guess what? You have to put her ass to death too, right? Them little rebellious kids, you got to put their ass to death. You got to take the the alphabet folks, and you got to get rid of all of them. You a fucking hypocrite, Esau, you devils. If a man have a stubborn and rebellious son which will not obey the voice of his father or the voice of his mother, and that when they have chastened him, he will not hearken unto them, then shall his father and his mother lay hold on him and bring him out unto the elders of his city and unto the gate of his place. And they shall say unto the elders of his city, this our son is stubborn and rebellious. He will not obey our voice. He is a glutton and a drunkard. And all the men of his city shall stone him with stones that he die. So shalt thou put evil away from among you, and all Israel shall hear and fear. See? And I mean, I'm not against the idea. I'm in agreement that this whole society should be that way. But you can't have it among our people and not, execute it among all people. That's just the bottom line. But that's what's coming to, that's what's coming to the world. Because the Savior's going to come. He's going to set up the kingdom of heaven. And you damn devils going to be under our rule. And our laws will prevail. Our laws will prevail. This right now, Esau trying to do everything he can to make Jacob the reason for all the shit going on in Babylon the Great. Do I agree with some of the stuff, with everything he said about black culture? Sure I do. But let's be honest. It wouldn't be like this unless your record executives, your music companies, your labels, which you run everything, it wouldn't be that way unless you allowed it to be that way. If you wanted all the rappers to be educational and because look at white music, so-called white music. Record executives, they make music, them little white girls, them little songs they make, it's just lighthearted, easy listening type shit. But when it come to our people, you got to be a gangster, a thug, or a pimp unless you won't get signed. Gangster rap should not have any place in the world, but because of the word you brought forth, that's why they behaving that way. This place is the land of confusion. Okay? Bottom line, this place makes all the people of the earth drunk. And you ain't gonna get out of this shit. You trying to make Jake the scapegoat? Hell no. You ain't gonna make Jake the scapegoat. Why you ain't said that about the nigga that shot CK? He supposed to be put to death. Revelation 17:1, and there came one of the 7 angels, which had the 7 vials, and talked with me, saying unto me, come hither, I will show unto thee the judgment of the great whore that sitteth upon many waters. What is the great whore? It is America, Babylon the Great. This is a breeding ground for wickedness. Verse 2 says, with whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk with the wine of her fornication. The whole earth is drunk with wickedness because of what you brought forth, Esau. You're the one in power. You made it for able for men to kill one another and all of that. Your movies got what they call stylized violence. You know what stylized violence is? That's when you make something violent and it's in a style to where it could be. Well, let's look it up. Stylized violence. And let's say define. Damn it. Define. Stylized. You make the shit look cool so people want to do it. Stylized violence refers to the artistic, exaggerated portrayal of violent acts, focusing on aesthetics, choreography, and visual flair rather than realistic consequences. This approach uses cinematic techniques like slow motion, dynamic camera angles, and vibrant colors to create a heightened emotional impact or convey a theme, sometimes even elevating violent scenes to a form of performance art. You make it idolized. What does stylized violence mean? Stylized violence refers to betrayal of violent actions. Well, we read that. Yeah. Aesthetic violence. You see? I mean, it looked cool, you know, like you said, slow motion. You make it a thing. And you made the whole world drunk with your abominations, with your witchcraft. Revelation 18:1 says something similar, or verse 2. It says, verse 3, for all nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication, and the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her, and the merchants of the earth have waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies. And let's don't forget about all the horror movies, right? The horror movies and the copycat murders that have spawned because of them. You're going to try to blame, like the old saying goes, if you point the finger at somebody else, there's 4 more fingers pointing back at you. This is Revelation 6:4. There went out another horse that was red. This red horse symbolizes the Edomites, Esau, Edom, right? The Roman Empire and Esau, Edom. And power was given to him that sat thereon to take peace from the earth, and that they should kill one another, and there was given unto him a great sword. This is given into your power, and you're the reason why everything on the earth is the way it is. You blaming Jake. And don't get me wrong, we ain't taking up for no rebellious ass niggas. You're right in some ways by what you're saying, but you can't execute rebellious black men without executing rebellious so-called white people and all the murderers and all. Because look, you put a damn murderer on death row for 20 fucking years. The nigga might die in prison. You know, you should empty out all the prisons. Everybody that's in there for murder, they should be put in fucking death. Period. There should be no murderers locked up. You could clear out, man. Look, so many people supposed to be put to death right now. Violent criminals. Supposed to be a whole lot of different. The world supposed to be a way different place. But see, you have the vibration you put on the earth is the vibration of wickedness. Anyway, I could keep on going. This is going to be an excellent conversation piece to go into later on and talk about it more. Anyway, that's it. This devil is a hypocrite. All praise to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai. Shalom.